So I got laid off 2 months ago. And no, I'm not in tech. And it also wasn't because of AI. I'm actually a management consultant, or I used to be a management consultant in Berlin, Germany. And here's what happened. So I was just coming back from holidays. I was sitting in the plane, and it was like 10 minutes before we were about to take off. And my colleague is texting me on WhatsApp, and he's like, "Hey, are you in the meeting right now?" And I was like, I didn't check my calendar during my holidays, so I didn't see any kind of meetings that I was supposed to be in right now. And I was like, "No, why?" And then he just goes like, "Should I text you now, or should we like wait until you landed? Should we have a call then?" And I was like, "Oh my God, like please write to me what the fuck is going on right now, because this is a 4 hour flight and I don't want to be caged in this plane, anxiously thinking about all sorts of scenarios, what this meeting could potentially be about. So please tell me." And then I just see like these dots, him like writing forever. And then basically all he says is like, "Our company is closing. They're taking over some of the colleagues into a subsidiary firm. We're not part of that group. And there will be a conversation with the CEO and HR tomorrow. You should have received a calendar invite." And I was just like, wow, like I think that was literally everything I managed to respond in that moment. And then, really dramatic, I had to put my phone into flight mode because we were actually taking off. So, yeah, then I had the next 4 hours to basically spiral in my head like, oh my God, what was all of my career for nothing? Everything that I've built up to here. I've never really left any company before involuntarily. So it definitely was a weird feeling. I got all sorts of thoughts. I was thinking, when is this going to come into effect? Do I have enough savings to kind of keep me afloat? Am I going to be able to find a new job in this economy? Because everyone's been talking about how bad the job market is and how AI keeps replacing jobs and everything. So I was definitely spiraling in my head. And yeah, I had a lot of hours to think about it. And then as soon as we landed, I basically checked my emails and I saw that calendar invite for the next day. It was called separation meeting, which honestly I found a little bit dramatic, like the way they phrase it, because it kind of sounds like, I don't know, it's like they might have as well called it divorce meeting or something like this. "Dear spouse, please meet me tomorrow at 10 a.m. so we can discuss our divorce." That's kind of what it seemed like. But yeah, the invite was there. And as my colleague had said, it was basically scheduled with our CEO and HR. And because, of course, perfect timing, I missed that one important meeting. I called up my colleague to kind of find out how it went down and yeah, also how he was feeling. And he basically told me that most of the colleagues and management were in the office. They were present during the meeting. They apparently had sent out the meeting invite on a Friday for the Monday. Also, a great way to start off your week. And basically what they were saying is that our small boutique firm is closing down because they are merging with a large American company, one of the largest advertising and public relations holdings in America. And due to redundancies and streamlining operations, they will have to let go of some of us. They will take some of them, as I mentioned, into the new organization, but not many of us. And they're really sad that this is happening, and they're sad having to let us go. But that's it. And my colleague was mentioning how everyone in the room was just kind of like silent. There was not much talking going on. There weren't many questions that were being asked. And everyone was just, I think, angry because it just didn't feel fair, and also sad and also a bit anxious. So yeah, it's like reality check, like, oh, this is actually happening. And it's not just AI and it's not just tech, but there's also other layoffs happening, just further showing you kind of how crazy the job market actually is at the moment. Now, I have to mention also that a couple of weeks prior to that, around 6 weeks maybe, they had set up a meeting for us where they announced an organizational restructuring and basically told us that from now on, they're not going to hire any more junior colleagues because that kind of work can simply be replaced by AI from now on. And so I think looking back, that was definitely one of the first signs that something was about to change. And we all kind of knew that something was happening, but we didn't really know yet when or what exactly was going to happen. And as I also mentioned, there were a couple of people who were not laid off. And those were definitely the people that had established more meaningful relationships with some of our biggest clients, so they could not be so easily replaced or made redundant. And I also made another video where I talk about signs that you're being pushed out of your company, where I talk about these kinds of things more in detail, so you can check that out if you want. Now, on the day of the separation conversation, you could tell that this was definitely sort of scripted to ensure that everything was really compliant and that no one could sue them after. But I also have to say that they were actually more generous than I thought they were going to be or than I anticipated. But they also definitely made sure to mention a couple of times that this is the maximum they can give us and that we should not try to kind of like sue them or anything, because then we might just end up with nothing. I didn't really say much at all during this meeting. I was just listening to them. And in the end, they told me that I should take some time, think about it, think about their offer. And if I'm ready to accept it, then I should basically call them up again to sign the deal. Also, at the very end of this conversation, they were saying how there is still a company event that they had planned prior to all of this, and that everyone who's been laid off is still very much invited. And it just felt really weird and really wrong to be like, oh, yeah, sure, you've just been laid off, but why don't we celebrate together? But then on the other hand, I also thought, like, honestly, maybe, because like free drinks and free food, maybe. And after that conversation, I had a couple more talks with some of my colleagues who were also being laid off. We were giving each other tips about how to go about it, what our next steps could be. I was also talking to another friend who had some legal experience in this field and also used AI to weigh up my options. And I have to say, it was definitely a roller coaster of emotions. I was feeling sad about being laid off from a company that I had worked for 2 years. I was angry to be laid off, not completely out of the blue, but somewhat. And then at the same time, I was also kind of happy and relieved, because for a couple of months before that, I could already tell something's not right. And the atmosphere was super weird in the company, I have to say. In the office, no one was motivated at all anymore. And everyone was just kind of like down and like sticking to themselves. And for that reason, it was also like, oh, actually, I'm feeling free. I'm feeling lighter. I'm relieved that this is happening. But then again, feeling anxious of like what the next steps might be, how does it look financially, and so on. So yeah, definitely all sorts of emotions there. And after all that, I basically decided that I'm not going to negotiate. I'm not going to involve a lawyer or anything like this. I'm just going to accept the offer as it is, mainly to protect my peace of mind, honestly. Now, the layoff came into effect immediately, and this actually really felt weird to kind of be given this notice from one second to the other, and then you're just like dropping all your projects. You have to contact all of your clients and let them know what is going on. I had projects that I was like really in the middle of with clients that were obviously expecting me to lead those projects and see them through till the end. And I had to notify them and let them know what is happening. So I definitely felt sorry for a lot of my clients as well. We didn't need to give our laptop away immediately, so that was great, because I could still get all of the documents and like pay slips and things like this that I needed also for unemployment afterwards. And also they mentioned that they were going to issue us an employment reference. Those were kind of like good news, but also all of a sudden I had a lot of free time. I was just like, oh, okay, so what do I do now? What do I do now with all this time? And I don't fully remember, but I think basically I made myself a really big lunch, watched something on Netflix, and just took my mind off it and just went about my day as if it was like just any other day, any other Saturday, let's say. But yeah, it definitely felt weird from one point to the other to have such a big change. And after this initial shock, as a next step, I made a very basic list on my iPhone notes, listing down each month and just writing down what I roughly want to do each month and where I want to be. And then I basically first set up my apartment for subletting it so that I could instead go to the Portuguese countryside and live in an apartment there, because the rent there and the cost of living in general was way lower. And I knew I had to obviously now save some money if I don't have this guaranteed salary coming in every month anymore. And also, honestly, in a situation like this where everything is kind of changing, I felt like sun could be a good option. It could be a mood booster. So I definitely saw myself more on the cheaper Portuguese countryside than living in gray Berlin for the time being. And basically looked for an apartment in Portugal on Facebook, like Facebook groups, still great for accommodations. I don't use Facebook for anything else than for this, but for that is still great. But beware of scammers. Anyways, that's a different topic. But yeah, that was basically one of my first steps. And then for the other months, I was going to apply for the unemployment. Was basically just having to do a lot of admin that comes along with this as well, especially in Germany. It's very bureaucratic. And funnily enough, a couple days after this had happened, I did receive a message from my boss from a previous job, and he didn't know anything about these layoffs, but he was asking me whether I wanted to join his new team. I was like, thanks, but no thanks, because something in me was just like, no, I'm not going to go straight back and jump into the next 9-to-5 job just to then probably be laid off because of AI or a merger or anything like that in a year or so. I want to take this time now and make a solid career plan. So I declined his offer. But yeah, it was definitely good to know that there would be this kind of fallback option. So I definitely was also grateful for him reaching out to me. Since those 2 months have passed, basically what I've been up to, a lot of great stuff, I would say. Like I read around like 6 books. I work out 3 times per week. I picked up dance classes again that I have been wanting to pick up for ages, but I always made these excuses like, oh no, I have no time because of my job. I went to doctor checkups that I had postponed for ages and was starting to cook more healthily and all that jazz. But yeah, don't get me wrong. I definitely also took some time to just chill and do nothing and be very unproductive and just watch Netflix and just take walks in the park and things like that. I also started focusing more on this YouTube channel, which honestly, it takes up so much time, but it's also a lot of fun and I'm learning lots of new like editing skills and speaking in front of the camera. Some of my friends have put it very nicely and said that I finally sound a little less robotic in front of the camera. Some improvements made there, I think. There's definitely been lots of good things, lots of chilling, and lots of reflecting on my career. And as for my career plan, I basically started heavily analyzing the job market, trends, what kind of industries are still hiring and are expecting to be hiring in the future, what kind of roles are more likely to become redundant. And I decided that basically I want to share these kind of insights with you here on the YouTube channel. I'm also going to pick up training and coaching so that I can help more people that have been affected by these layoffs now, and try and A, gain back confidence, and B, try and see where the career pivot could take them and what would fit them best as a next step. Because I feel like there's so many of us out there at the moment that could probably use this help. So if you want to discuss how your application strategy or just your next career step could look like, you can just schedule a free call with me. I'll put the link in the description. And yeah, we can just have a chat about it. And again, don't get me wrong, I do realize that I got extremely lucky getting a severance package, having this unemployment support, being able to swap my apartments, and also having a former boss reach out regarding a job. But I do think a big part of it and a big part of why I'm doing good today is also mindset. I'm trying to see it as rejection is redirection. So don't let your confidence be completely knocked off by a layoff. It's not just you, it's happening everywhere. And also give yourself some grace. Like you've achieved great things already and you definitely have a lot of skills. You just need to rearrange and see how to apply them better for the future and to be set up better for future changes. So yeah, that was a lot of me talking. Let me know if you have any questions about my experience or if you've experienced something similar recently and what your outlook is, what your perspective is on the whole thing. And yeah, thanks for listening to me.